Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Gluestick channel. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore full-time and have a collection of hundreds of monster ecology and strategy videos on my channel. If you like what I do, please consider subscribing as I upload at least twice a week. Imagine a minotaur with a little bit of a dragon, a little bit of troll, quite a lot of giant, and a whole lot of mindless rage, and you have the Garestro. The Demon Lord Baphomet's greatest triumph as he experimented with crafting a new living weapon in the Tanar'ri Horde's arsenal. It is hardly shocking that Baphomet would base the creature on his own visage, or that it would excel at tearing through the endless walls of the gigantic maze he dwelled within on his own layer of the abyss. Garestroi wander these twisting corridors and chambers for mile after endless mile, hunting for prey. As demons, they don't need to eat anything. They are more elemental than organic creatures. They are sustained and grow on a diet of rage, hate, and wild destruction. When a Garestro catches another creature, it grabs and eats the creature out of sheer malicious and savage cruelty. Not because it needs to, but because it wants to. Garestro are huge demons, well over 20 feet tall, weighing several tons. When seen from a distance, they look like they should be smaller, as they're almost squat with a broad and heavily muscled frame. Truly mighty, they have a strength of 25 and are classed as living siege monsters, which means any damage they inflict to objects and structures always does double damage. When encountered in the wild, outside of the control of a demon lord or other powerful and evil being, they are basically huge and nearly mindless brutes, wandering without rhyme or reason, chasing anything that moves, stomping, smashing, ripping, biting, and roaring. They are one of the most dangerous things to encounter in Baphomet's endless maze, but at least the end for their victims is typically quite quick, so I wouldn't call them the worst horrors to encounter on that layer of the abyss. Garestros crave murder. It's their favourite hobby and also one of the best means to control them. A promise of many victims that they can chase and kill is all the motivation they really need, as the endless maze can be boring even for a massive creature with an intelligence of 6. Their low intelligence can be a problem though, as they will certainly forget not to kill any other creatures around them, including the Demon Lord's own forces, unless the Garestro is provided with either a constant reminder or a consistent supply of victims, like giving chew toys to a pet puppy. If you leave the Garestro unsupervised, you may well return to find all your army dead, your fortress destroyed, and bits of your infernal war machines scattered and chewed all over the place. There is no point even attempting to discipline a Garestro. Any anger and violence directed at them will just make them much, much worse. They do have one mental ability that can occasionally be impressive, thanks to their special qualities of their creator Baphomet, and spending a long time in the endless maze. They can perfectly recall any path they've travelled. This can be used it's been used more than once by abyssal forces who send Garestroi in as scouts, with promises of more victims and more power if they return with the heads of devils from heavily trapped and fortified devil strongholds across the lower planes. Those Garestro who have survived and returned can lead the rest of the demons directly back along the path they took, following the trail of destruction the Garestro has left in its wake, including sprung traps and killed defenders. It's very unwise for a mortal spellcaster to summon a Garestro. Any demon is very difficult to control. The Garestro is even worse. They make all saving throws against spells and other magical effects with advantage, plus they have a whole lot of saving throw bonuses. Plus 13 to strength and constitution saving throws, plus 7 to wisdom saving throws, and plus 6 to dexterity saving throws, which is startling considering they only have a dexterity of 11, but you would expect such a massive creature to be a little slow on its reaction speed. They can cover 40 feet of normal movement per turn, and they do tend to dash when they're not attacking, and will always attempt to charge at their target. If the Garestro moves at least 15 feet straight toward a target, then hits with a gore attack on the same turn, the target takes an extra 7d10 piercing damage. If the target is a creature, it must succeed on a DC 21 strength saving throw or be pushed up to 20 feet away and knocked prone. Pushed 20 feet. Sounds a hell of a lot nicer than impaled and hurled 23 feet through the air to land broken-limbed, splintered ribs, vomiting up a gout of blood. But yeah, just a flesh wound for your average superheroic player character. The Garestro is a challenge rating 17 monster, so the characters should be high enough level to take a fair bit of that sort of thing, that sort of punishment. Still, as a DM, it's really your job to impress on them just how brutally strong the Garestro is. If there's a wall between the character and the end of that 20-foot pushback, have them go through the wall. If they're wearing a non-magical shield, have it torn in half or just shattered on their arm. When the Garistro swings and misses with a punch or stomp, have that fist or hoof smash the ground. Make a 5-foot space of difficult terrain as it literally damaged the environment. They are juggernauts. They make 3 attacks per round, usually 2 fist attacks and 1 hoof attack. All physical attacks are plus 13 to hit. The punch does 3d8 plus 7 bludgeoning damage, has a 10-foot reach because it's a massive creature. The hoof has a 5-foot reach, it's a snap kick or a stomp, and does 3d10 plus 7 bludgeoning damage. And if the target is a creature, it must succeed on a DC 21 strength saving throw or be smashed into the ground, knocked prone. The gore attack of the Garisto has a reach of 10 feet and does 7d10 plus 7 piercing damage to a single target. Now add to that the 7d10 piercing damage from the charge attack, and yeah, it's brutal. When under the control of a demon lord or other master, the Garisto may be further enhanced with weapons worthy of a creature of its size and power, such as an enchanted adamantine great clubs and axes of enormous heft. Adamantine is an ultra-hard black metal found in meteorites and extraordinarily rare mineral veins, particularly on the world of Toril, where the adamant geode clusters form in molten rock pockets near elemental earth nodes, and are much more common in areas suffused with concentrations of Faerun's unique Phase-Res energy. Well, Phase-Res is not entirely unique to Faerun. The demons have managed to take some advantage of it and use it for themselves. For those of you who are less familiar, if I can sidetrack for a moment, for those of you who are less familiar with adamantine or Phase-Res, since there's some debate about them both, adamantine is the worked and processed alloy of a raw adamant ore. It is a black metal, it is glossy, and the light that reflects when shined on its surface, called a sheen, is either a green sheen when viewed by normal light, such as candles or torches, or a purple white sheen when viewed by magical light, such as wizard's magic light, fairy fire and that sort of thing. There is artwork out there depicting the metal as silvery. It isn't in its raw form. It might be coated with another metal, or to mask its true nature, it might be alloyed with other types of materials, because other fighters probably don't want to break their weapons on adamantine shields or have their blade broken against the edge of an adamantine weapon, so they might actually avoid somebody who's obviously wearing it. The smelting of adamant is difficult. It requires very high temperatures. The metal is very delicate when superheated, and cooling it can easily shatter it. The most common alloy of adamantine is 5 parts adamant ore, 2 parts silver, and 1 part electrum. Electrum is a naturally occurring silver-gold alloy that was much more common as a coin back in the day. This process was commonly used by dwarves. However, there is much more complex and difficult process which uses magical procedures, and it creates an alloy of adamant, mithril, and steel. In 5th edition, adamantine armor negates critical hits, and they just turn into normal hits, and whenever an adamantine weapon or piece of ammunition hits an object, the hit is a critical hit. This neatly represents the ultra-hard qualities in a fairly simple and easy to remember way in the rule set, and I quite enjoy it. The true origin of Phase-Res is actually unknown. Elven myth and legend is generally believed by most people as the energy first appeared around the same time the Drow came to live in the Underdark, but that's the only evidence in support of that theory. Areas suffused with Phase-Res can range in size from a few dozen feet across to several miles in diameter. These areas are always filled with a dim light. This is typically violet, purple, magenta, and rarely a hint of green. A creature in the area suffused with Phase-Res has advantage on saving throws against any divination spells. If a divination spell doesn't allow a saving throw, the caster must succeed on a DC 15 Constitution saving throw to even cast the spell. Failing this save means the spell is wasted and has no effect. The casters just can't lock on to the location at all. Similarly, teleportation in this area is highly dangerous. Any creature attempting to teleport into, within, or out of a Phase-Res suffused area must succeed on a DC 15 Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes 1d10 force feedback damage, and the teleportation attempt fails. They basically just bounce back off it. Even if the save succeeds, the teleportation attempt can suffer a mishap if the destination was known only by description, regardless of how familiar the destination actually is. Though Phase-Res can't be dispelled, its effects are temporarily suppressed in an area of an anti-magic field, so the gaze of a beholder's central eye, for instance. And getting back onto the subject of the video, areas suffused with phase rest have become tainted by the chaos of the Demon Lords. When a spell is cast in a phase rest suffused area, the caster rolls a d20. On a roll of 1, the spell has an additional chaos effect, exactly like the feature of the Wild Magic Sorcerer. I personally highly recommend using the D1000 table called the Net Librum of Random Magical Effects version 2.0 by Aurex. I will put a link to this in the description text under this video. Load it, print it, lovingly bind it and keep it with you at all times. It is absolutely amazing. I cannot tell you how many times that has become a hilarious aspect of my gaming career. So, certainly, equip a Demon Lord's pet Garistro with plates of adamantine armor and massive great axes of the stuff. Enchanted to always return to the Garistro if it hurls it, drops it, or has it taken from its grasp. It merely reaches out and the weapon reappears in its huge hands, ready to cut something completely in half. The strength of the weapon and its supreme durability are essential, as the Garistro will use it to cut through anything in its path, including castle walls, iron golems, earth elementals, dragon scales, Elminster's hat, Grist's cat, your cousin Bat. You get the idea. Garistros will charge at targets, and if they knock them flying for 20 feet, well, that just means they've got 15-foot run-up space that they require to charge again. So they will, until it's a broken sack perforated by its own bones, but hopefully still alive enough to squirm and scream as the towering demon picks it up and chews on it, roaring and tearing off limbs before really mangling it and either swallowing it or spitting it out. Remember though, Garistros are pretty stupid creatures. They love charging at targets, and if they see movement within 15 feet, they're likely to go for it, which can be a strategic weakness if the opponent knows about this and makes use of things like minor illusions to fool the Garistro into thinking there's a vulnerable target within range, which they will charge off at. Garistros have their own basic tactics, of course, such as hit it until it's dead, drop a building on it, and of course, throw it at something, breaking two things at once. Unless encountered with a wild in the abyss, it's highly likely that a Garistro is found in the company of other demons who are there to protect it on behalf of their masters, because siege demons are highly valued by demon lords. They expend considerable resources in travelling to Baphomet's realm, sneaking in and capturing a Garistro, which is, as you can imagine, not as easy as it sounds. They spend a lot of resources keeping the Garistro supplied with playthings, and they expend considerable resources transporting them to where they can be put to the most devastating use. Demon Lords don't waste their living weapons, and the more they have in their arsenal, the higher their status. The higher their status, the more power they accrue. The more power and destruction they can unleash, the more lesser demons are attracted to their horde. It's a feedback loop of violence and continual drive towards destruction and ruin for anything around them. Demons feed and grow on it. They spread like a plague. They thrive on combat and will most certainly fight each other. I've often described the Abyss as basically the WWE on crack. It's just constant challenges and fights everywhere. Garistro don't care what creature it is that they're killing. They don't care how big or how small the victim is, or either they'll take on a Tarrasque unless the handlers manage to veer them off in another direction. Sometimes Garistro actually have howdahs constructed and secured across their shoulders. Howdahs are like those things that they have on war elephants, living towers, so that other demons and quite often Yugoloths will ride around on them. The Garistro need to be kept magically dominated for this. Sometimes this can be achieved by some bizarre methods, such as deliberately infecting their brain with some parasite from the far realm. Other more direct and crude methods are to just shove a large adamantine spike directly into the sweet spot in their skull, leaving just enough mental capacity for them to respond to getting jabbed by acid-tipped spears. That's not necessary for those Garistro who willingly serve a demon lord. They are actually remarkably trustworthy and reliable for a huge, stupid demon. Their minds are really only capable of concentrating on whatever it's right in front of them, or one set of simple instructions that they will follow with fanatical intensity. They are literally not capable of thinking of very much else. The other mental attributes are a wisdom of 13. They do have quite keen senses, including 120-foot dark vision, thanks to their skill at prowling and searching for prey in the endless maze, with a passive perception of 17 and +7 to active perception checks. They have a charisma of 14 because they're massive and terrifying. They have a constitution of 25, armor class of 19, thanks to their very thick hide, 23d12 plus 161 for between 184 to 437 with an average of 310 hit points. They are totally immune to poison and take half damage from cold, fire, lightning, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks. So they're simply living tanks. They speak Abyssal, and I'm not sure they actually can learn any other language, so any caster who tries to summon one of these things better either learn to speak it or have a spell or item that can translate it, and better hope the huge demon doesn't simply shrug off the wards, charms, enchantments and such, step out of the summoning circle, and turn the wizard into a scarlet smear on the floor, walls, and ceiling. Orcus uses Garistroi to create his own terrifying monsters called Howrers, which use the lifeless body of a Garistro melded with the lower half of a giant spider and stilled with a higher intelligence than a living Garistro. Orcus created these massive, intimidating spider demons as a direct insult to Lolth. He put them front line on his forces when he went up against them, and so Lolth simply loathes Orcus with a passion. Because they are the most effective and most commonly used demons to hunt and capture Garistroi, the average Garistro tends to hate Galabrezu demons. However, Baphomet openly allows them to enter his maze to hunt his creations, simply because it's to his benefit that the other denizens of the Abyss know that the Garistroi are his creations, and that their very existence and value brings him much higher prestige. Demon Lords do, after all, have massive egos. Okay, a little bit of history for the Forgotten Realms. A Garistro named Orwants, under the personal command of Grast, patrolled Asgrat's borders to defend travelling merchants by destroying the few bandits that prowled the area. Talk about overkill. He demanded tribute from his protectorate that often found its way into the Argent Palace's treasure chambers. The largest known Garistro was 10 times the size of most and known as Bjornganal. He walked around the Abyss with a small village of Aranias living on his back and shoulders. In 1486 DR, matron mother Quenthel Bainbray successfully summoned a Garistro and used it as her personal representative and soldier in Menzoberranzan. I imagine the cost in slaves and cleaning crews was absolutely astounding. Please hit the like button if you made it this far, subscribe if you like what I do, check out my Patreon for some exclusive content and all the full scripts for these videos, buy some merchandise, check out the links to D&D WoW for dice sets, use the code GLUESTICK for 15% off every order. Check out my merch on Teespring, wear your geek with pride, and as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.